shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all my subscribers and everyone else in YouTube land, and I am grateful for all of you. So thank you so much, over 5,300 subscribers. It's wonderful, so thank you so much for that. And with that, we're going to do a special review. Of course, I'm talking about SK13, Kubrick's Endgame, which is only available through the website for SK13, and it is definitely worth renting. It's also available to buy, but if you're not too sure, rent it. I think it's about $7.99. Definitely worth it if you are a fan of Stanley Kubrick, and especially of Eyes Wide Shut, which celebrates its 25th anniversary as of July of this year. So, this documentary by Tony Zierra, the director who also did Film Worker, which was about Kubrick's assistant, personal assistant for many years, Leon Vitali, the late Leon Vitali. This film is a way of uncovering something that is fundamentally deeper about Eyes Wide Shut than first known or revealed at the time. Now, as many of you know, Eyes Wide Shut was basically a picture that was advertised as a sex thriller, or seemingly a seamy type of sex movie, almost softcore porn, perhaps for some, and that was the tease that was released earlier in the year, the teaser back in 1999. So, turns out that Eyes Wide Shut, of course, is anything but any of those things. It's not a sexual thriller. It is very much about sex, but it's not a sexually charged picture. It is a dream film, and it is based, of course, on Arthur Schnittler's book, Traum Novelle, also known as a dream story. And the film is basically a dream. So if you were to have a dream, this is what it would look or feel like. It's certainly the impression I got when I first saw it back in 1999. Now, the problem with Eyes Wide Shut is that the teaser was much ballyhooed, but the actual release of the film was excoriated by critics and audiences alike. Pretty much, there were a lot of people that either hated it, didn't understand it, couldn't follow it, found it boring, tedious, etc., etc. One of the critics that's shown in here reacting to the picture was Jeffrey Lyons, who I was unaware of the fact that he found it so tedious and pretentious, a word I think is overused nowadays in today's climate. But nevertheless, the picture was pretty much rejected. It was the most financially successful Kubrick film up to that time because, of course, it starred Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And if you remember, at that time, this was a power couple. I mean, they were talking about them endlessly in the media, kind of like Ben Affleck later on with Jennifer Lopez, and even later on than that. And that all that publicity, I think, probably put some people off anyway prior to the film, regardless of the fact that it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, this was a notorious production. It went on for 2 years, pretty much. It's the longest continuous production, filmed production in history. But it would only take a Stanley Kubrick to really do that. I think they only had a couple of interruptions for Christmas, and that was it. So now, Tony Zierra, what he does, he talks about a missing shot in the film, which I'll leave you to discover. It's really not that significant, the shot that was missing or altered. But then again, this was the case with most of Eyes Wide Shut, pretty much, to a certain extent. So, after editing for 18 months, Warner Brothers was less than pleased, it turns out, with the film. Now, there are some talking head interviews in this picture, one of them being the late Julian Sr., who was a former Warner Brothers marketing executive. Now, it looks like he had something to say, and he tells the director, Tony Zierra, cut it. I'll tell you privately, but not when the cameras are rolling. Now, this was about the fact that 4 days before Kubrick's death, the film was shown to two Warner Brothers executives, one of them being Terry Zemel. Both executives, if I'm not mistaken, actually resigned not long after the film was shown, I believe. So they were shown a private screening of the film along with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And apparently this was the screening that the press reported was successful. They were happy with the film and Kubrick was relieved. It took a lot of pressure off of him and then he passed on. However, it turns out that the film was also shown again to somebody else. And in this case, it was Pat Kingsley, who at that time was Tom and Nicole's publicist. So she saw an advanced screening of the film at Kubrick's home. This is very interesting because it seems, judging by the quick flash of a couple of newspaper clippings that they show, that she was pleased with the film because she wanted to see what this was. This film was being held in secrecy. I mean, not even Warner Brothers knew what was going on. Keep in mind, it was a $65 million budget, and Kubrick had a very, very tight, small crew. Every penny that was spent was checked by Kubrick. Any unorthodox or unnecessary expense was basically called out. So, but essentially Warner Brothers had no idea what was really going on with this film at all. Now, what Tony Zierra also does in this film, so he deals a little bit into that. So the what's implicit in that, I think, is the fact that Warner Brothers was mortified by the movie, which is not unlike MGM executives back when 2001: A Space Odyssey came out at its premiere. And Kubrick just felt terrible because MGM was mortified by 2001. Like, what the hell is this? And so he cut the film. He cut 19 minutes from 2001 after the premiere. And then the film that is today is the one that he edited down a little bit. And that's very important to mention. It's not addressed in this picture, but that would suggest that Kubrick was going to make some changes, which makes perfect sense, because he always did that with certain films of his. Dr. Strangelove had a pie fight scene in the war room. That was deleted. I think only a couple of pictures have ever surfaced of this particular scene, but the actual scene has never been shown or seen anywhere. As far as I know, it might have been destroyed. I really don't know. Now, The Shining also had a slightly different ending originally, and then Kubrick cut that to where it's at now. To show you how often Kubrick would go back and tinker with his films, you only need to know about Tobe Hooper, the director of Poltergeist and Salem's Lot and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So he actually met Kubrick. Now, I believe it was at Kubrick's home, but I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly, but he does mention this story. And Tobe says that when he met Kubrick was still working on the sound mixing for The Shining. Now, here's the thing. It was 2 years after The Shining had already been released. So, there you go. So he always tinkered with his films. So there's no doubt Kubrick would have still been tinkering with the picture. But, obviously, executive decisions were made about this final cut film. Again, Kubrick had been editing for 18 months, so most of this was pretty much ready. Some of the sound needed to be changed. They brought in Cate Blanchett to voice the prostitute during the orgy when she says, I redeem him. That's Cate Blanchett. But she wasn't picked with Kubrick's approval because Kubrick was gone. He was dead, unfortunately. So this was after the fact, after Kubrick's death. Not to mention the cloaked figures at the orgy, which, again, I still believe that he may or may not have agreed to that, but only temporarily. Because, it should have gotten the NC-17 if that's what the MPAA thought. But he could have fought that easily. Are you kidding? Kubrick? Kubrick was always concerned about every single conceivable detail. The most trivial thing. You think he would not have fought to have those cloaked figures removed? Of course he would have. Absolutely. And he would have made a good case for it. Because the sexual acts themselves are not really all that pornographic. It's the fact, which I still believe to this day, that the MPAA found it to be a little bit too intense. There was an intensity to it because of the music and everything else. It's depersonalized sex acts. They have no meaning other than just the carnal pleasure of having sex. People wearing masks. That's it. And since this is Dr. Bill Harford's point of view, played by Tom Cruise, then we need to be able to see that. Now, Tony Sierra also deals with other aspects of Eyes Wide Shut. He looks at the film objectively, and he noticed some things that I never noticed before. Now, I've seen Eyes Wide Shut many times. I may have noticed a couple of other things that I never really wrote about. I've done an analysis of the film, about 25 years ago now. But there were things that really caught me off guard. I hadn't noticed, but it may be because I didn't look at the film objectively enough to notice any subliminal clues. One of them being the same mailbox appears in many different shots because it has the same graffiti. All the New York street scenes, basically, which were shot on sound stages. The taxi cab that drops off Bill Harford or picks him up or whatever, or in some cases just, he misses getting a cab, has the same license plate. Always the same license plate. Like, that's the only freaking New York cab. The other one that I knew about was Gillespie's. Now, this is a brief one I'll mention, but the Sonata Cafe, which is where Dr. Bill Harford sees Nick Nightingale playing piano with a pickup band, is right next door to Gillespie's, which is some sort of a luncheonette to a certain extent. Now, when he leaves the Sonata Cafe after talking to Nick Nightingale about going to this particular place, which is, of course, Somerton Mansion, somewhere in Long Island, off of 95, 495, and he says, I'm going to get a costume, and where are you going to find one this time of the night? And then we cut to a scene where the cab arrives at the Rainbow Costume Shop. So when he is trying to get a hold of the owner of this shop, Mr. Millage, you see a reverse angle of Dr. Bill Harford talking to him through this pane of glass. And in the background is Gillespie's. Now, I do remember this, but I kind of forgotten this. So this is basically what Dr. Bill Harford did, was take a cab to go right across the street. So it's really very interesting. Not to mention the Somerton sign, which again, I never even realized it. He got me off guard with that one too. So the Somerton sign, when you see from his point of view inside the car, you see Somerton, the sign, and then the front gate. So he goes right past the sign to the front gate. Okay. But in a different angle, from a long shot, you see the cab, and here's the gate, right? And the Somerton sign now is located past a chain link fence. So it's no longer where we saw it. So the question is, were these errors in continuity that Kubrick noticed, or did he let them just let it go? My feeling is that he was such a stickler for every single detail that even though he was getting older, I think he recognized this. Because why would you choose the same cab with the same license plate number except to evoke anything other than a dream? And I think that's really the key to understanding Eyes Wide Shut. It is a dream. I really believe the film is a literal dream, the whole thing, which could be inside of Bill Hartford's head, the whole entire film. But that's how I view the film now. I mean, I've sort of been thinking that. Now, I don't know that for sure. I don't know if Kubrick's intention was that, but it certainly evokes that. A lot of those clips evoke that. So this is a wonderful documentary. I mean, I saw it twice. I thought it was absolutely terrific. This guy, Tony Sierra, if he wants to uncover clues and discuss other Kubrick films, this is the guy I would choose to do that. I mean, talk about Barry Lyndon. Talk about The Shining, but, something more than, a little more credible than Room 237, which is worth seeing if you love The Shining, but, that's full of conspiracy theories. Not all of them are really that relevant or justified. But here was an examination of Eyes Wide Shut from beginning to end. There is no behind-the-scenes footage, so that means that all you see is an audition with Marie Richardson, who talks about how she had to over-emote for her role, and that's it. Other than that, there's no behind-the-scenes stuff at all. A lot of pictures of Kubrick behind the scenes, but no behind-the-scenes footage, which tells me nothing was really ever shot, which corresponds with Katerina Kubrick's claims that who I had talked to on Twitter many months back, that she had no knowledge of any behind-the-scenes footage, because Vivian Kubrick is the one that shot a lot of behind-the-scenes footage for Full Metal Jacket and The Shining, but she was not around during the production of Eyes Wide Shut. So anyway, check out SK13. The link will be below for the site, and watch this film. I do believe it's hard to know for sure if this is exactly the way Kubrick envisioned the entire film. If he would have cut something or trimmed this or trimmed that, and I'm sure he would have, particularly the sound mixing. So if you're interested in Eyes Wide Shut, check out this documentary. If you love Kubrick, check it out. It is absolutely worth seeing. Whether you love it or hate Eyes Wide Shut, it's worth seeing this documentary for sure. So that's all I got to say about that. So once again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all my subscribers out there. And thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you are a subscriber, please hit the notification bell for future uploads. If you aren't a subscriber and you like this video, you can see I did plenty more similar to it. A lot of movie reviews and film analysis and fan-made trailers and anything cinematically related is on this channel, including the occasional discussion of a trailer, but no trailer reactions. I just don't do that, sorry. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.